Meet Aurora, the 19-year-old TikToker who claimed to have 16 traumatic brain injuries, as well as OCD, ADHD, PTSD, BPD, and a lot more. She claimed she couldn't see out of one eye, couldn't hear out of one ear, that she could hear her brain clicking, and that she was in constant pain.
And for past couple weeks, every time I go like this, I hear clicking. I hear clicking in my brain, and I no can hear it from outside.
This led to Aurora setting up a GoFundMe, which received nearly $50,000 in donations from people who thought her life was in danger and wanted to help her survive. However, at the same time, she was posting constantly, hanging upside down from ceilings and pulling off crazy stunts on skateboard ramps. She couldn't keep her story straight, from telling everyone that her brain was sitting diagonally in her head to saying that she underwent brain repositioning surgery.
This man continued to hammer a bunch of weird tools in my head and did a very strange procedure up my nose. He essentially said that it was going to properly reposition my brain.
The claims continued to get crazier and crazier until the whole thing came crashing down. Here's how it happened. Aurora Rory Lee is a skateboarding, high-flying TikToker who rose to prominence around 2024. At the time, it was her stunts rather than her brain injuries which were the center of her channel. Aurora was quite the daredevil, backflipping into pools, swinging upside down by hanging her feet, and even skateboarding upside down without a helmet on.
Make her disappear just like poof, then she's gone. Addicted, don't know what the fuck I'm on.
And there's nothing wrong with a little extreme fun, but with the claims and medical conditions she would go on to make her channel about, this hobby makes zero sense. At the time, however, she did have a compelling response for people who were worried about her safety. She just needs that adrenaline, and you just can't get it. She may be onto something. Aurora revealed she has borderline personality disorder, which stems from abuse and SA she received earlier in her life. She put out a video with text overlay reading, "The reality of being an SA survivor. Welcome to the world who doesn't believe victims unless we can prove it. Just because I can't prove it doesn't mean it didn't happen to me. You think anyone would admit to SAing someone? You think I could have just pulled my phone or while actively being SA'd? You'd think there's something I could have done to prevent it? After all I've said, please don't forget the victim is never to blame." Aurora never provided any specific details on her abuse or her abuser, nor did she need to. The message she was trying to get out there was clear and it resonated with people, as some of the videos really went viral. This one had 7 million views.
Nobody knows where they might end up. Nobody knows.
She also explained the link between her BPD and her abuse in another post where she says, "On romanticizing BPD. Welcome to the life of being abused to the point of it disordering your personality. Just because we feel things 100 times more intense doesn't make our feelings any less valid. You're demonizing our overreactions when our brains were incorrectly wired due to excessive trauma. You think I want to constantly feel like someone's dying over the smallest inconvenience? But after all I've said, please don't forget, every borderline has been traumatized beyond belief. Take it slow. Wait for us to tell you the truth about our experiences." The importance of her statement is somewhat undermined by her swinging upside down as she desperately tries to fit the message into the rhyming scheme of 21 Pilots' Heathens. Nevertheless, what she says is correct, as there is an undeniable link between abuse and BPD amongst the majority of people diagnosed with the condition. The problem here, however, was the fact that Aurora would later go wild with the details of her mental illness, self-diagnosing herself, and coming to conclusions that were harmful, behavior that was picked up on by other creators.
Mental health stuff. She was posting a lot about her BPD diagnosis, which she has confirmed been diagnosed with by family members, and then shifted to this autism self-diagnosis, how I knew I had autism without a diagnosis, and she really grifted hard onto that.
In a now deleted video, she even encouraged self-diagnosis because getting officially checked out by professionals was either too time-consuming or expensive. This allowed Aurora to go crazy and pretty much diagnose herself with everything under the sun for content.
Really, any mental illness or condition that has an acronym.
She loves a diagnosis. Here is a list of all of the things, and I'm sure I'm probably missing a couple, that she has claimed to have wrong with her.
That's not to say that she didn't have these things wrong with her, but she was only officially diagnosed with BPD as far as we know. Then at some point, her content shifted into traumatic brain injuries when she dropped a bombshell video.
It's Aurora. I'm 19. I've survived 16 traumatic brain injuries, and I'm alone, and I'm going to be homeless in less than a week. There's been a lot of times I didn't think I was gonna make it, but it has never gotten this bad. I'm facing extreme symptoms. I'm currently moving out of my apartment.
The stammering seemed to have come out of nowhere, and 16 traumatic brain injuries was about 15 to 16 too many for most people. It was hard not to feel any pity for her, as she goes on to mention that she was completely alone.
My apartment is completely by myself. I don't have family or any kind of support system. I have to have all of a part of everything in my apartment out and clean, and it hurts for me to have my head even in upright positions. I'm struggling to just do the most of the basic things that you need to survive. I can breathe fully. It's not my lungs. I can take full deep breaths. It doesn't feel like I'm getting enough oxygen. I don't know how to explain.
And according to her, these brain injuries were so bad that it was causing her physical pain in other areas of her body. Some of the symptoms were even manifesting every 5 to 10 seconds. She was apparently even having trouble with her vision as the injuries were affecting her eyes. She also claimed an unusual liquid occasionally streams down her nose, which burns her severely. And finally, she stated that a family friend had bailed on her and that she was completely stranded. The text on screen read, "This is the hardest video I've ever made and posted online. No one knows the severity of what I'm struggling with. I live alone without any support system, and I've genuinely never been more terrified for my life. Be kind. As humans, we are not capable of comprehending what it's like to be someone else, and this isn't the reality of what I'm living with. I'm not fake or exaggerating anything. I've had a lot of brain damage and trauma. No one has any idea what it's to be me. My symptoms are rapidly worsening. I've had multiple seizures, clear poisonous salty metal tasting liquid falling out of the right side of my nose, trouble swallowing, seeing and hearing, passing out frequently, don't feel like I get enough oxygen to body, clicking in brain when trying to pressurize my jaw. If you're able to hero immediately, here's my Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal while I wait for everything else to process. I'm doing this alone and running out of time." Not long after this, a GoFundMe was set up in her name. We'll go on to read the details of that page in a minute, but it's important to point out that the overwhelming majority of the internet were feeling nothing but pity at this point and were ready to help or donate to a young person who appeared to be dealing with unprecedented health conditions. There were skeptics, of course. 16 traumatic brain injuries at age 19 is insane, so it's worth checking out how she got to this point. According to her, she was just weeks old when she got the very first one as a baby.
I obviously don't remember this, so I'm just telling you this based off of what my parents have told me. But basically, they left me in like a car seat on top of like a really high bar top counter, and no one was supervising me. They left the room with me in the car seat thinking I'd be chilling, squishy baby brain, and I would be fine as long as I didn't get any more traumatic brain injuries. This is a picture of what I looked like when that first happened. You can see it was much bigger than it currently is now.
According to her, she picked up her third TBI before she celebrated her third birthday. By age 11, she had 6 traumatic brain injuries and claimed she got more brain damage because the doctor she was with misdiagnosed her with psychosis. In one of her quirky posts, she said, "I've been brain damaged my entire life, which caused severe psychosis as a kid. Doctors assumed I was just crazy and medicated the hell out of me, causing more brain damage instead of looking for the root causes of my problems." Ignoring the gravity of a misdiagnosis of that scale for a moment, Aurora goes on to claim that she got her 10th TBI by age 18.
Hey, let's go. What insane? Insane at the membrane. Insane at the membrane.
And from this point on, closer to when she launched the GoFundMe, the timeline for the TBIs get impossible to follow as the number goes from 10 to 15 to 16 in next to no time. Here she is a couple weeks later after she's had 10, now stating that she had 15 TBIs in July 2024. Then in October, she explained that she recently picked up 3 new concussions, 2 of which she lost consciousness for.
My name is Aurora. I am 19. Last September, I was diagnosed with post-concussive syndrome, and in October, I had 3 more concussions. 2 out of 3, I lost consciousness.
And so that brought her total to 16, which she wasted no time posting about. She went on to add in a different video, "Feels like I'm trapped in some sort of nightmare haze. My symptoms fluctuate faster than I can think. I stopped trying to understand. I'm in constant pain. That I've detached so far from my body I don't feel real at all. Time keeps moving, but I'm not in it. And the reflection staring back at me doesn't feel like mine." She also provided a breakdown of all the different types of brain injuries she's had in a video from July 2024, where she said, "I've cracked my head open twice, had at least 12 concussions, and shattered 2 windows with me noggin." Which of course perfectly adds up to 16 even, though she said she only had 15 at the time and wouldn't pick up the 16th until October 2024. But never mind trying to follow that insane timeline. What was most disturbing was the fact that she kept making these videos where she's doing insane stunts, hanging upside down from ceilings and metal pipes, as she informed us of how brain damaged she was. In one video, she even described herself as quantumly immortal. It's obviously meant to be a joke, but the question is, what's so funny about it? Remember she made a video talking about how she couldn't see out of one eye, couldn't hear out of one ear, how her brain was clicking, and how she was in constant pain? The reason why that video went viral was because Aurora described debilitating symptoms that would more closely resemble those belonging to a person with that many traumatic brain injuries. But outside of that particular video, Aurora seemed a lot better, but continued to make videos talking about how close to death she was. "My doctor said I would cease to exist if I got another TBI. That was at least 6 TBIs ago." Aurora seemed desperate to sell herself as some sort of miracle survivor, which made sense when you consider that most people with multiple TBIs suffer crippling symptoms that and are even in a vegetative state. The average seasoned pro footballer doesn't get as many as Aurora claims to have, and anyone who does is barely functional. This is why so many were willing to donate to her GoFundMe in spite of these dodgy videos. The GoFundMe page, titled "I'm 19, brain damaged, alone, and out of time," had the following description: "I can't think straight right now. I'm in so much pain, but I really need to say thank you to everyone. I don't even know a way to properly express how grateful I am that feels good enough. This passed the goal, and I never thought it would. I'm not raising it again. I don't even know how to process it. I am just beyond thankful for all of the support and kindness you all have been showing me. I also feel I need to say this. Nobody knows what's happening to me but me. Not my family, not anyone from high school, people claiming to be my friends, and certainly not randoms online pretending they know the truth. I don't talk to anyone in my family. I have no one helping me. I've been doing this alone. People don't see the seizures, the blackouts, the unbearable pressure in my head, or the clicking sound my brain makes when I try to push my jaw forward to relieve it. They don't see the days I can't speak, can't think, can't function. If you have any questions, please ask me. I'm an honest person and have no problems clarifying any questions or concerns you may have, but please don't make assumptions and spread lies. I'm not faking or exaggerating anything. I made this because I had no other option. I just want to live somewhere safe and finally get proper treatment to figure out what's wrong with me. I don't want a life of luxury. I just want my health and some stability. Thank you to everyone who's supported me. I'm still here because of you. All records and documentation have been submitted. I've followed every step exactly as asked. I'm trusting the platform to handle this responsibly because my life depends on it. Aurora." The GoFundMe campaign raised $47,000, and the funds were apparently meant to cover almost $30,000 of medical debt, as well as her car insurance and a move to a new apartment. This was one of the last updates she put on the page, and the defensive language in there was due to the fact that her story was beginning to come under intense scrutiny. This was because there was no consistency in her videos. Sometimes you would get one where she's talking about the possibility of having brain cancer.
The entire universe is on your side and rooting for you to get what you want. You just have to relax and stop throwing the hissy fit that you're not getting what you want right this minute.
Then a couple days later, you would get a video where a clearly drunk Aurora is hanging upside down at a club with staff members begging her to come down. There's just no way any doctors would let their patient with multiple brain injuries do any of this, especially one who claims to be suffering with debilitating symptoms and is having literal cancer scares. All of this was insane and impossible to justify. One concerned follower even tried to suggest that this may have been an older video she had in her drafts, because there's no way the current Aurora, who's one TBI away from death, would be doing any of that, and she responded saying, I'm not doing very good, but this isn't a draft. This was a couple days ago. Absolutely nuts. This unfortunately led Aurora down the road of making even more audacious claims to back up the audacious claims that she hasn't been able to prove, like stating that medical facilities around her lack the proper testing and personnel to adequately diagnose her. ER doctors listed differential includes, but is not limited to, intracranial injury, spinal injury, intrathoracic injury, intra-abdominal injury, solid organ injury, hollow organ injury, seizure, neurovascular injury, orthopedic MSK injury, electrolyte abnormality as differentials, but they don't have proper resources or testing to give me a full definitive answer, which is why I'm now waiting on a call this week to finally see a real neurologist. The chances of an ER not having the capabilities to run life-saving neural tests is slim to none, as many were quick to point out, and this was a predicament she was in because she apparently had a seizure and blacked out for over 4 hours. Had another seizure out of nowhere the other day around 6 p.m. Woke up at 10:30 in the hospital with no memory of how I got there. Blood pressure dropped from 127 to 99 to 88/55, and kidney function crashed from 97/69 in 4 days. Still leaking salty water, looking fluid from my nose and out one of ear, losing vision in my left eye, and my brain feels like it's on fire 24/7. Finally got my first PCP, so hoping I get into neurologist, neurosurgeon by end of the week. And then Aurora had this bizarre meltdown where she appeared to be accusing lab workers of stealing and destroying her medical records for some reason. On the screen, as usual, she added some extra context through text. LabCorp took 10 plus vials of my blood, then called to say they're throwing it all away. No tests being run. They made copies of my medical records without my consent, refused to give me back my lab paperwork, and tried to shred it in front of me. I left that lab violently sick. This is medical abuse. They are not medical records because we haven't processed anything. Hello? You didn't even do anything for me. These medical records are from another provider. It's a little difficult to make any definitive conclusions from that interaction, but it really does seem like they're trying to get rid of a defunct data from a provider that's no longer operational. You can maybe feel some empathy for Aurora, as it can be scary and dehumanizing not knowing how your medical records are being processed or what's being done to them, but this wasn't the scandal she thought it was at the time. And people pointing this out, as well as any other criticism of her inconsistent behavior, were met with defensive responses like this.
No matter how much you think you know me, there will always be parts of my story that are for me and me only. That's kind of the point. You never know everything, even when you think you might.
These responses start out reasonable, but soon become snarky and impatient. Like here when she says people only hate the quote-unquote perception of her rather than the reality. Reality, however, was catching up with her. The chronically ill community was beginning to lose their patience with Aurora as her story continued to get more crooked. At some point, she stated that she only had 30% of her brain's functionality.
Seemed to appear. He said that I had an access to a maximum of 30% of my brain's full functioning capability.
And people correctly pointed out that a person in that state would be a vegetable, or at least seriously and physically disabled. That's almost the clinical definition of being brain dead, which is a term she has used to define herself in the past and got immediately called out for it. When she saw that criticism, she responded saying, "Some people twisted that into me claiming I was brain dead or using that for attention. That was never what I meant. I understand that term carries serious weight, and I would never joke about it or take it lightly, especially knowing how many people have lost loved ones to that kind of trauma. I was just trying to make sense of what a doctor told me. That's it. I've never claimed to know everything, and I've never once tried to disrespect anyone else's experience. I'm just trying to survive mine." Apparently, Aurora's doctors told her all sorts of crazy stuff, like how her brain was sitting diagonally and pressed up against her skull.
Thought I would talk to again, and I was connected to this provider that claimed to be some world-renowned brain doctor. I trusted him. He told me that my brain was sitting diagonal inside of my skull, that my brain had been permanently pressed against the edge of my skull, and
So now Aurora was the victim of medical mistreatment as well, because this quote-unquote doctor apparently did a brain procedure up her nose and went to town with a hammer and other weird tools.
To hammer a bunch of weird tools in my head and did a very strange procedure up my nose. He essentially said that it was going to properly reposition my brain.
All of this was severely harming the legitimacy of her GoFundMe campaign, of course, and things went from bad to worse when her own brother left a comment on a Reddit thread saying, "I took her to the hospital for a muscle cramp a couple months ago, and she didn't even mention this brain damage to any of the doctors. And because I know you're wondering, no, she didn't even hit her head again after the visit. She's just straight lying. She hasn't had 16 TBIs, and it's funny because me and my brother both have had more head trauma than her growing up, and we're completely functional." This was a huge development, obviously, because it's one thing for people on the internet to read the clues and call her out from the outside, but here we had someone on the inside doing so as well. Her brother would have been there for these incidents, as well as hospital trips for any diagnosis or treatment. This wasn't something Aurora would be able to sweep under the rug as just another case of, "You don't know me, so you can't criticize me."
You know, it's disgusting, and it genuinely mortifies me to think about how judgmental people are when we have absolutely no idea what goes on in anyone else's mind, body, or life.
However, she did publicly respond to her brother in a comment saying, "Hi, most of my family is also brain damaged, and they weren't properly educated on how it can affect someone. I think my mom feels partially responsible, and my brothers who have had repeated brain injuries don't understand why my brain damage looks different. If you want to message my epic dad, he's the one that knows what it's been happening with my health." At this point, a lot of information was coming out at once. A friend came forward stating that Aurora had stolen her brain scan and posted it as her own. She has since deleted this post, but Rory wanted me to compare our brain scans, so I stupidly let her screenshot mine. She tried to analyze her brain scans and was convinced hers were weird. Again, I'm not a doctor, I have no idea, but neither is she, so she doesn't have the qualifications to determine this. The fishing for issues on scans is odd. Although there are no identifiable features leading to anyone knowing the identity of whose brain scan this is, she deliberately and intentionally lied and used my brain claiming it was hers. The lies just keep coming, and this did feel super weird for me to witness because, like, hello? That's my brain. Aurora's responded to these claims using text messages to dispute how that interaction went down.
None of you guys are aware of is this friend never wanted to help me. She just convinced me that she did so she could take my social security number, the front and back of my driver's license, and a whole bunch of my personal and medical documentation. You can see just out of nowhere, bro just sent me this is my CT scan. You see my brain is chilling and not sagging if you want a reference. Then I sent one slide of mine.
But despite Aurora's confidence,
this was a situation that required tangible proof that neither side were providing. At this point, that $47,000 was at risk because GoFundMe opened an investigation and froze her withdrawals. She sent a message to the GoFundMe team pleading, "When will my funds start to transfer into my account? I need emergency brain surgery and these funds are vital for me getting me the help I need." To which they responded saying, "Hello, Rory. I'm going to send you to our risk team now so they can complete the review process with you directly. While they won't respond back as quickly as our customer care team, they should get back to you within the next 24 hours. Thank you for your patience while we work. Keep GoFundMe the safest place to give. Best regards." Basically, they were on to her and she was desperate. It also meant Aurora hadn't provided the necessary documents required to prove her claims to GoFundMe. It's one thing not to show the general public your private medical records, but if you're going to run a GoFundMe campaign and receive almost $50,000, there needs to be accountability for every single one of her claims, which was simply impossible. More people close to her were coming out of the woodwork to reveal the truth about the situation. They made a lengthy post saying, Dakota was previously helping Rory communicate with GoFundMe. GoFundMe had reached out to Rory with questions about the fundraiser, mentioning they have received some complaints and wanted to make sure this fundraiser was legit. They asked Rory to provide proof of diagnoses of all 16 TBIs and documentation of medical bills totaling $30,000. Rory was not able to provide that information because she does not have 16 TBI diagnoses and does not have $30,000 in medical bills. She also used ChatGPT to write the GoFundMe bio. So, what is true? Well, she has some medical debt, however, not anything near $30,000. She technically had $22,000, but Medi-Cal, her health insurance, will bring it down to $3,000 if she calls them. She refused to do so, not sure what she's done now. While at Dakota's house, we called Rory and talked for approximately an hour and a half. While on the phone with Rory, she admitted to fraud, saying that she estimated the amount of medical bills she had because she didn't know. You can't say that you have $30,000 in medical bills if you don't know. That is fraud. That is felony intentional or not. She also told Dakota she was planning on using the GoFundMe money to pay for a minor in possession of alcohol citation, which she went to court for on Thursday, the day I was in Chico, and a speeding ticket. That is not permitted according to GoFundMe policies. We reported the GoFundMe, and I highly doubt there is any chance of her getting the funds. Everyone who donated should eventually receive a refund. She also did not stutter. Unless we called her out of her BS, then she would stutter and say that she could not comprehend what we were saying and claimed that she had short-term memory loss. We talked in circles for over an hour on the phone. And with that, the GoFundMe grift was officially dead because Aurora couldn't provide any proof. She disputed this, of course, and desperately tried to justify the funds.
I really wish I was lying. So I spent a few hours creating you guys a visual representation of my 1-year survival and recovery budget so I can show you exactly where every penny of your money is going. All this right here is the bare minimum I need to survive long enough to get life-saving brain treatment. 1 year of brain damage bills is going to cost me more than $55,000, and I need at least $5,000 for emergency medical reserve, which I did an explanation here. You can pause to read. Here's some more about the emergency medical reserve. You can pause to read this if you'd like. So the $5,000 reserve is just to make sure that I can get to the hospital if I have another seizure, if I black out or collapse again.
This was a futile exercise, though, as nobody was buying it at this point, and neither was the GoFundMe team, leading her down a brief path of snarky comments and claiming that it got taken down because of bullies. You don't have to believe me, just remember I'm 19, fighting progressive brain damage, and this is the first appointment I wasn't completely alone for. The bullying took my fundraiser, but it didn't take away my reality. Nothing they say changes the truth. After this, Aurora didn't appear to course correct, deleting a majority of the TBI videos from her channel and putting a little distance between herself and the platform in general, with her not posting anywhere near as regularly as before. She stated she's focused on healing privately now, and that whilst she's progressing, she still has a lot of struggles. At the end of the day, it's impossible to deny that Aurora does have some serious brain and mental health issues, and for someone that young, all people want to see is her overcoming that and finding a way to live a happy life. Did she exaggerate her symptoms for attention and money? Yes. Did she spread harmful misinformation about brain injuries and chronic illnesses? Yes. She knew exactly what she was doing at the time, and it's a cautionary tale of how not to spread awareness about such a serious subject. But at least she left well enough alone and moved on with her life, for now.